Welcome. Since you are here, I assume you've heard about the four $300 Historic Preservation Grants KSDAR will be awarding this year. And I know you probably have questions, which I hope to answer. Some of the following information is new, but some has already been emailed to chapter regents and historic preservation chairs. Thanks to the generosity of friends and DAR daughters honoring the memory of Pam Reisig, who was all set to serve as the State Historic Preservation Chair before her sudden death last summer, we have the funds to award four $300 grants. One will be given to a chapter in each of the state's 4 districts, so your odds of winning are pretty good if you choose to apply. The following guidelines follow ideas set forth by Pam herself. Writing grant applications is sometimes daunting, but not this one. It's only 1 page long, and we will offer suggestions and guidelines during this workshop. Here are the 6 simple questions on the grant application form. What is your project? How will you promote it? What is the estimated project cost? Does the project require or depend on additional funding? If you will receive community partners, who are they? Will you be working with another chapter? There are many directions an historic preservation project could take. This workshop will mention several. However, you're encouraged to come up with your own. You might have been inspired by actions of other chapters who cleaned and/or restored historic headstones during last year's National Day of Service. Or you might see the need to install a new marker at an historic site, as Carla Sutton of Shawnee Mission Chapter did last year for the unmarked graves of African Americans in the Laurel Hill Cemetery. Not all projects require hard physical labor or hours working with the local community. You might work with a local genealogical library or museum on a project they have wanted to complete. Or you might need to digitize or preserve documents or records. These might even be your chapter's own historic documents. Your chapter or a member might have an historic artifact that needs cleaning and/or restoration. You might want to take on a project to record the history of family heirlooms in your chapter or community. Or you might sponsor a local workshop on how to identify, restore, or preserve family heirlooms. While some projects are quite expensive, you may apply the $300 grant toward one small aspect of a project a local historical preservation group is working on, such as restoring an historic building. Could you paint a room? Could you clean and repair some light fixtures? Or could you work with your community to raise additional funds to complete a project? The grant money may be used for an additional phase of an ongoing project. You may choose to clean and restore another section of a cemetery where you've done clean and repair work in the past. You may expand your work in a local library or genealogical library. You may choose to restore or rededicate a monument you've already cleaned. Is there a Santa Fe trail marker near you? Kansas DAR sponsored a project 12 or 13 years ago that got many chapters involved in cleaning or paying for the cleaning of the Santa Fe markers in our state. But that was quite a while ago. Does the marker near you need cleaning or even some repair work? Since this is the 200th anniversary of the Santa Fe Trail, now would be a great time to re-examine that marker and restore it to its original condition. If you choose to pursue this project, be sure to notify Dee Sadler. She is a Kansas daughter who serves as the National Vice Chair, Commemorative Events Santa Fe Trail 200th Anniversary Committee. You can find her contact information on the Kansas DAR website under the SIP tab. She also has a Facebook page. Just type in the search column, DAR 200th Anniversary of the Santa Fe Trail. If you don't currently have a historic preservation project in mind, give it some thought. Brainstorm with your chapter members or executive committee. You will get more buy-in from your members if the project is something they can identify with or find value in. List the historic preservation activities of your chapter. List those activities your members are involved with or on an individual basis. List any ideas chapter members are considering. List special interests or skills of members, genealogy, organizing materials, etc. List historical organizations in your city or area. Great projects often start small. Begin with the efforts of your chapter members and move out from there. Great historic preservation projects often are born from personal interest, a family history and archive, a treasured quilt passed down from generation to generation, a farm in the family for 100 years, a house with many memories. Pam wanted chapters to become more involved and also to use their involvement to let others in the community know more about DAR and its good works. So DAR chapters or members of a chapter must be involved in the project. However, more than one chapter may work together. Or a chapter may work with a local historic preservation group. You just can't hand some other group the money and walk away. One purpose of these grants is to get chapters involved in historic preservation. Once you've selected a project and identified those you might be able to work with, the project must be publicized to help show DAR involvement. Contact your local newspaper. If you live in a small community, they will be more than happy to cover your activities. However, sometimes it's necessary for you to write something up for them and or to take some pictures and send them in along with an informative caption. Don't ignore neighborhood newsletters, especially if you live in a larger community. Consider other options. Contact a radio or TV station. Publicize it via Facebook or Twitter. The goal is to make sure others in your community know DAR exists and is active in its efforts to support the history of your community. Our state PR chair, Melissa Preck, has provided some source material you might refer to as you seek to publicize your chapter's good works. I'm going to show you a slide with these resources. Don't worry about copying those slide information down right now. I'll email this information to all chapter regents and historic preservation committee chairs. Again, I'll email this information to all chapter regents and historic preservation committee chairs. Just know that Melissa, our state PR chair, and I are both available and willing to answer your questions. I know this has been a more than difficult year, but this is doable. The form is easy and your options are pretty much wide open. You may have to Zoom in on a project decision or hold a meeting in the park. But once you select a project, you can complete the application form in a very short time. Your application is due October 15th of this year, 2020. The form is on the KSDAR website. Click on the SIP tab and scroll down to State Historian. I will also be emailing a copy to you along with the PR links. So all you need to do is figure out how your chapter would like to spend $300 while gaining recognition for DAR and actively engaging in historic preservation in your area. Once you've selected a project and filled out the grant application form, email it to me, Vicki Churchman, that's vchurchman@cox.net, by or before October 15th, 2020. The application form is simple, and you have a pretty good chance of winning this $300 grant. But if you do not win the grant, you are already well on your way to a great historic preservation project. And you can work with your community to achieve your goals as well as to let them know more about DAR. You might also apply for a national DAR grant to fund your project. There's a real push for historical preservation projects by national DAR. And this workshop continues with information on those national grants. So let's get started.
Hello, ladies. My name is Amanda Tindell, and I am the Historic Preservation Grants Vice Chairman for the Welcome Home Administration. I'm a member of the Topeka chapter, but I currently live in Lompoc, California with my husband and 4 kids. I'm a stay-at-home mom, which in these times means I also monitor online school, I'm a short-order cook, and a constant house cleaner. I'm excited to share with you today about the Historic Preservations Grant. Historic Preservations Grant used to be known as a Special Projects Grant Committee, but was changed with the Van Buren administration. The DAR Historic Preservation Grants provide financial support for local community projects that preserve historic resources, sites, and other history-related projects. Past winners of the grant for the $10,000 include the restoration of the Laurel Branch Farmhouse in Maryland and the Albany County Historical Association's foundation restoration of the 1798 Ten Brock Mansion in New York. The Hannah Winthrop chapter in Massachusetts was awarded $1,169 for its repair and restoration of gravestones. Note that they didn't apply for another organization, but for themselves to complete the repairs. A chapter in Vermont was awarded $514 for the Bixby Memorial Free Library to help with document conservation. These last two are ones that I'm sure most of our chapters could use in our local communities. So the grants are from really large sizes like the $10,000 on down. Each application must be accompanied by a DAR chapter or state organization sponsorship letter. The maximum grant amount is $10,000, and the grants are funded by members' generous support of the general fund. First things first, though, where do you go to find information about the grant? If you go to the website dar.org and click on the word members at the top of the page, it will then lead you to a login page where you'll need to know your state, chapter, and then your national number. From there, you click login. On the next page, you will scroll down a little and find a box that says committee information. Click on that box. On that page, you will scroll down a little bit again and find Vice Chair DAR Historic Preservation Grants. Click on that link. From here, you can read about the grant, see the application, the instructions, and there's even a flyer you can print out to hand out. So these are the instructions. I won't read them word by word, but I will note some key items. The first section is eligible projects. If your chapter is awarded a grant, the applicant must agree to publicly recognize DAR's contribution. You need to check with the applicant and make sure this is something they can and are willing to do. Section A, projects related to all chapters of American history are eligible for consideration, though preference is given to those that relate to the colonial through the federal period. Don't let that discourage you. If your chapter has a great project, fill out the application. Section B, all of the other funding for the project must be secured and the project must be tangible and long-lived with a lasting historic preservation benefit. Section C, you can only be awarded one grant during an administration. That does not mean, though, that you can only apply once. If your grant isn't awarded one year, you can try again with the same project or a different one. Not being awarded does not mean that it wasn't a worthy project. It could just mean that they had a lot of great applications that year. So try again. The next section is application requirements. No more than 10 pages total in the application are allowed, and it can't have any special bindings or covers. Just the paper is all that needs to be sent. Well, what else do you need to be attached to the application? The sponsorship letter, and it should only be 1 page and come from the chapter regent or state regent. Part B, you will need a 1-page copy of the applicant's IRS 501c3 public charity determination letter. If the EIN number isn't included, write it clearly in the margins. Remember, this is just page 1 and you write the EIN number in the margins. You don't add an extra page. The whole application needs to stay under 10 pages. Part C, resume or summary of experience of the project manager or person who will oversee the project needs to be included. This may seem like something strange to ask for, But DAR wants to know that the person in charge of this project and the money that is going to be awarded knows what they are doing. Now on to submission requirements. 5 stapled sets of the completed application need to be mailed to the National Vice Chairman and postmarked before December 31st. Carol's information is at the top of the first page, and I've included it on this slide as well. It cannot be sent requiring a signature. I know this is hard because this is your baby that you've put a lot of time and effort into, and you want to know she received it. The problem is that it could delay her getting it if she isn't home to sign or can't make it to the post office to sign for it and pick it up. So now this isn't part of the official application, but at this point, I would love for you to send me an email, text, or call me and let me know that your chapter applied. Since the applications don't come to me, I have no other way to know that your chapter sent one in. And I would love to applaud your hard work at state conference, but I can't do that if I don't know about the application. Okay, I hated to even highlight this part, but please make sure you follow the instructions. You don't want your application to get eliminated because the directions weren't followed. Have multiple sets of eyes look and read over everything to make sure it is accurate and all the necessary information is included. Okay, here comes the really hard part. You won't know if your grant is awarded until May 1st. The best thing to do is to forget you even mailed it, so you don't have to count the days. That will inevitably seem to go by slower than usual. If your project is awarded the grant, half the money will be sent to them by July 1st. Then a 6-month report needs to be sent along with receipts and invoices to the National Vice Chairman. The rest of the funds will be sent after the project is completed and approved by the National Vice Chair. If you have any questions, you can reach out to the National Vice Chair at hpgrants@nsdar.org. She is typically quick to respond as I have emailed her a few times. However, we all have lives apart from DAR, so please give her a few days before you reach out again if she doesn't respond. Okay, now that we know the rules, let's look at the application itself. Part 1 should only be 1 page in total. Remember, you're working with that 10-page limit. I know number 4 has to be a challenge, to tell about this project you're passionate about in 1 sentence, but that is all that can be included. Give a clear picture of the project, as concise as can be. In part 3, you want to make sure that your answers are to the point, but let the reader understand what the project entails. You don't want this section to get so wordy that the person gets lost in what really needs to happen. Part 4. You will need to work closely with the organization to get these numbers. More than likely you have been the whole time, but for this section you will definitely need the information from then. Okay, the timeline. You know, it's what the plan is. Everyone understands the project could have setbacks, but there needs to be a plan for how the work will be completed. Now I get to tell you about a success story from our state that I'm really excited about. The Kansas chapter was awarded a grant this year for $620 to help with the preservation of quilts at the Stafford County Historical Society. They were able to purchase 310 clips, and they've already arrived. So this is a picture of the front of the museum building where the designated quilt room is located. This next picture shows the quilts and how the clips are used to hang the quilts to the racks. What a great way to be able to display so many beautiful quilts. When I asked them if they had any helpful hints to pass along, these were their suggestions. The chapter should be well acquainted with the entity they hope would receive funds from NSDAR grant to help preserve local history. They also said not to be intimidated by the grant writing process. The directors of these organizations usually know how to write a grant application and will be a great help in applying for their organization. Well, ladies, that's all I have for you today. If you need any help, please feel free to reach out to me. I look forward to hearing about many more grant applications being submitted. Thank you.